Alright, so I stopped by the Beguiling because it's been around forever. It's like a staple of indie comics, and I want to make sure I at least check out local indie comic shops. It's an amazing store if you're in Toronto, and if you do stop by there, you can pick up copies of 2 stories. They bought like 4 of them. But honestly, the coolest thing about this store is there's original George Harriman and Winsor McKay pages and just cartoonist art all around, so it's a pretty good shop. And yeah, if you're into indie comics, check it out. Yeah, welcome back. The dogs are glad that I'm back home. I'm gonna give this a shot because it's been a long time since I've done like a commuting vlog, and I just thought I'd do them. Which I know makes me like unique as an older, middle-aged guy in a car doing a stream or a video. So anyhow, I got back from TCAF super late. So the flight was delayed by like 2 hours, and then the luggage was delayed by like an hour, and then getting out of LAX was a nightmare because there was like one patch of street to kind of get on the freeway that I need to get to my house that was just like a crawl. Like it was just slowly just inching forward, like really slowly. So anyhow, I am slightly jet lagged. Luckily I have my coffee, and now I'm heading to where I work as an art director, and I thought I would record some thoughts, just recap thoughts on TCAF. So one thing I'll say about Canada, like the trip was a bit expensive. I'll be honest, it was a little pricey. Like for a trip, I don't think it was that expensive, like compared to most people who vacation a lot or something like that. But I'm a person, I've mentioned this on all the vlogs that I did about TCAF, that like for a person who doesn't vlog a lot, it kind of makes sense that like that like it seems expensive to me. But I will say this is one nice thing about Canada and the US. A lot of the prices that I thought I was paying for things, when I looked at, like obviously when I got home, I looked at my finances and stuff like that, and it's like way less. So I spent less than I thought I had spent when I was in Canada, because the prices were Canadian. So it's like, something that seemed like it was like, $50 was $30, that kind of thing. And that especially counts for Uber. And I kept thinking, like, why are Uber rides in Canada like so expensive? Like, they're usually a little bit more affordable in LA. And then, although LAX, of course, they're going to charge a premium anytime you're, like, that goes for taxis, any kind of transport. But yeah, so like that was a relief. Like I found out I had spent less money than I thought I did, which was good. I also just wanted to say that it's an emotional roller coaster kind of doing conventions, and I think that overall, with a few days, I guess like a day behind me, so far what I've processed, I feel like it was a really good event. And accident reported ahead. There's an accident reported ahead, you guys. Yeah, so I got back home. It's so nice to be home, though. Like, as nice as the Airbnb was, like, which it was really nice. it's nice to be back like at the house that we live in, where there's a little more space. I'll probably miss that like beautiful window view. There were police reported ahead. You're gonna overhear a little bit of waves in the background. But yeah, so overall ideas and thoughts that I think might be kind of cool. One is a friend of mine, Alan, was talking about authenticity, and it made me think of a panel that I was on. One of the things that I was talking about in the panel at the last day of TCAF was autobiographical comics and why it's so important to kind of like, if you get to a part that you're really uncomfortable about yourself, you can go like surface level and write it like most writers, including myself, when they first tackle Autobio, where you're the hero and everyone around you is crazy, and it's like you're perfect, and everyone else is like flawed. A lot of people make that mistake with early autobiographical work, and sometimes that can work out to great effect for a story. But I'm convicted about autobiographical narratives. I started to realize, especially towards two stories, when I was approaching that book, that it's really important to me as a writer to, if I get to a part about myself that I don't want people to know, so it's like I want it to stay hidden, or a part that is really uncomfortable, or a truth about something that happened where I wasn't the best person, like where I didn't respond well to a situation, where I was flawed. I think to write good autobio, and I'm not saying I'm pulling it off, but I'm just saying this is just my philosophy on autobio. My favorite autobiographical work gets into like super uncomfortable territories, and really leans into like vulnerability. And by being vulnerable and authentic, and this is what Alan's thing kind of reminded me of, he was sort of mentioning the idea that if you're truly authentic about yourself, you're going to be a terrible person. If you're truly authentic, we are authentically all pretty hideous people. So, not that authenticity is bad in art. I don't think it is. But my point that, and this was diverting from his point, because I think his point was like talking about like coming from the perspective of like, maybe the pursuit of authenticity shouldn't be our primary pursuit. Like if I'm super authentic with my son, I might say things that would like traumatize him or something, you know? It's like there's a point to like, as a parent, you need to be a little transparent, or as a leader, you want to be a little transparent. But if you let the veil down, you know, and or like don't choose like to have a filter of like what's age appropriate and stuff like that around your kid, you're gonna end up in this scenario where you're doing more harm than good, right? And I think his point was like that the modern world might want to consider looking at other things than just true authenticity for their identity, right? Because like being your authentic self, if we all are honest, I think, about who we authentically are, it's just not a pretty picture. And Alan was mentioning this, as a thought as to how, like, if you were just purely, exploring authenticity, I don't want to recap everything he said, but the whole gist was that it'll negatively affect your marriage, your, family, your relationships with friends, that, like, our authentic selves are very, like, framing things from the lens of authenticity can be really damaging. And that was his point. My thought, like, it was just interesting because I was on that panel and I was talking about this vulnerability and the importance of being really honest about how terrible you are, autobiographical work, and if anything, like if you get to those awkward points, like exaggerate them, like try to lean into them and kind of dress them up, because that's going to be the thing that makes it really human. But it's also really hard to write. So that was like my point. But when I read Alan's thing, it just dawned on me why, because I couldn't explain why that works, why I think that makes for more successful autobiographical work and more believable autobiographical work. And I realized that I realized at least a component of it is a little bit of what Alan was talking about authenticity, where, great art, in my opinion, is very authentic, but you can't fake authenticity. That's tough. And you have to be vulnerable to be authentic. But if you're truly being authentic, we're terrible human beings. Like, if I'm truly being authentic about myself, I have like some major flaws. I have some dark thoughts. I have definitely had times where instead of being in a relationship with a friend for the friendship alone and to serve that person, where I've been very like self-minded and thinking about like maybe like business connections, or like how can they benefit me, and it's just like it's a darker side of who I am, and I have to kind of fight that beast of the darkness or whatever to be a good person, kind of, like to be good, I have to kind of work against my baser instincts, which are pretty awful. Anyhow, so I think that's why Autobio works so well when you depict yourself as a flawed character. Why fiction works so well when you have flawed characters. I've always found, like, I always got bored by like DC Comics because the characters never had like major flaws or anything like that. And so then we're in this scenario where it's like we're reading these stories about like these mythical gods or superheroes, and they have no relatability or connection. So anyhow, that was just an interesting thing from this morning. I'm interested in seeing how well I survive. Like, this is one thing that definitely happens after conventions, is convention fatigue. And yesterday, like, I have to say, it didn't feel like a nice, relaxing day after a convention to like kind of recalibrate, which was my hope, right? Because like, anytime I book like a flight or something like that, if I can allow for an extra day for like recovery, I will. But that leads to this like really awkward situation when your flight is delayed and it's an international flight, so I had to be there like 3 hours earlier at the airport anyway. And so then I'm bumming around an airport for like 4.5 hours to 5 hours. I will say I did manage to stop by Midtown Comics, which I'll put like a video of that to show you guys. I think I recapped it and talked about some of the original comic pages they have in their collection there that are really exciting. I think I did a few little shots and updates throughout the day, but yeah, so today I'm just hoping like I can be on point, have my coffee, get my mind right, and like do well for my employer, and then try to calculate SBX too, because I don't know if that's going to be feasible. We'll have to see. Oh yeah, so anyhow, overall view of Toronto in general, it's cliche, but compared to LA, people in Toronto are super polite. I know it's like a cliche about Canadians being polite, but I do think there's a culture there of people kind of going out of their way to be helpful, to be kind, to not cut in line. They're really good at like queuing in lines. And again, like that festival, one of the things I loved about it was when my card reader went out and I asked a volunteer if there's like a way they could help with it. I had volunteers coming like I think like 20 or 30 volunteers stopped by my booth and were just like, "You're Josh, like your card reader." We never got to fix the issue, but they tried. Like, they tried to loan me a card reader. There were like 4 people who were trying to help set it up. Like, it was amazing in the sense that like every volunteer at that convention was really concerned that every exhibitor was having a good time, and yeah, so that was great. The panel was great. The sales were I'll tell you, Graphic Mundi's sales were awesome. I think Jacob sold like a decent amount of books. On my own end, I sold quite a few copies of 2 Stories and Numb. So between Jacob's, 2 Stories, and Numb, sales were okay, but by no means did I make back my expense to get there. And I kind of went into it knowing that that was a possibility, so I'm kind of okay with that, because I do feel like the connections made there, the whole purpose of going there was to promote a book that I have out, Jacob's Apartment. And so, like, again, it's like, I've talked about this on here before, but like the idea of an abundance mindset is so important, and I've caught myself in life like not having that. Again, like I said, you know, if we're pursuing authenticity about ourselves, we're pretty dark human beings. Like, we're not the best human beings. Or maybe I shouldn't say we and just speak about myself. Like, I am not the best human being when I'm just being like completely, you know, pursuing my authentic self, because I can be pretty selfish. And oh yeah, so I was like, I'm driving, so I was trying to remember what my point was. Authenticity. So no, not authenticity. It was about abundance. So I know it's like, it's bantied about in like I don't even know if banty is a word, so bear with me on that. But it's thrown around, the idea of this idea of abundance, and I know it can kind of start sounding like a cliche that's thrown around in like business circles, or, you know, in corporate environments that are trying to kind of coax you into like working harder or whatever. But there is a point to it. Like, I think that there's 2 kind of ways you can, there are at minimum 2 ways that you can look at things when you're experiencing life. One is, you know, in a scarcity kind of way, where you're sort of looking at everything like, I need to get mine because we're on a life raft, and if I don't get my food, then I'm not going to get any food. Or I need to get like this cool thing. Screw the guy next to me because we have limited resources. And there are scenarios where that is just a harsh reality, right? Like, there's some areas in life or times in life where like you literally have no resources. There's limited resources, and there almost has to be like a fight for it. I mean, this has been the cause of endless wars and struggles throughout the world. But even in that context, a lot of those wars and struggles, it would have been better quite often to go a different route, and realize that like okay, if we think about like countries or competing villages or something like that, if the village and country next to you is doing well and they have an abundance mindset, it's going to be good for you. If you're doing well and you have an abundance mindset, the village next to yours is going to do well from your success at that. Like, we're actually in a society where other people having good things helps other people, including yourself. If like I do really great in comics, and then I have a friend who's in comics, and they do, you know, they benefit from me doing good in comics. If they do good in comics, and I benefit from them doing good in comics, because like, again, like it's like helpful to have friends in the industry. I've seen this work in my career for sure, in illustration and design, where it's like, it doesn't hurt to know people in the industry. If you're ever out of work or out of a job, if you have those connections can sometimes get you employed, or help you get a literary agent, or help you get a publisher, or help you get another publisher because your editor at your publisher likes you, like, or help you sell books because people like you, because they're like, oh, so-and-so talked about your stuff. My point is, like, an abundance mindset is like so important, and it's also important when it comes to promotion, because it's very easy. I've seen a lot of cartoonists, and I've probably fallen into this quite a few times too, where you'll see cartoonists get really upset because they did a convention and they just ate their shirt. Like, they just lost a lot of money. It seemed like a miserable experience. Their tabling reflects it, right? They almost like give up. They're just like, man, I'm not going to make table, and that's it. That's the end. Because they're going there with the intent of like, I need to make money today, and I kind of, to an extent, agree with that. Like, I don't think you should go around just losing money. If you can make it, if you can break table, if you can make a profit, it's far better to do a con like that. It's better for your psyche too, because, like, I don't even use the word psyche quite often, but I think that would be the best word at this point. It's better, quite often, in the short term to have that, but and in the long term probably too. But the problem is, if you go into a convention with only that mindset of like, what is going to happen at this convention today, and not thinking about like the connections that you're making that could last a lifetime, the ability to interact with people and make them have a positive experience, or help them have a positive experience at an event, the ability to connect with people on a deep and profound level. I mean, I literally had we had a couple people like cry at our table, and I know that's going to sound weird, but it's like, for the kind of work that like Graphic Mundi does and I focus on, at least so far in my career, it's very vulnerable and emotional. And again, like, it doesn't make like, my work doesn't make me look good. It just, I don't think it makes me look good, But when you're vulnerable, it sort of allows other people to be vulnerable. And it's like, when you talk about a hard topic, it kind of opens up the ability for other people to speak about stuff that usually they get shunned or embarrassed or like stigmatized, right? Like, that's what I mean by like destigmatizing mental health conversations. When I talk about two stories, it's like, there is something magical that happens at conventions. Usually at least one person will open up about their issues dealing with like depression, or with panic disorder, or with suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. And because I've talked about it openly, and I have to kind of discuss it when I'm doing my pitch, and pitch always sounds kind of like cold and corporate, but all a pitch is just, if you're doing it right, you're just trying to kind of share the love you have for the work that you're selling with other people, and kind of let them know why it's great, why you love it. I think the worst pitch is like something you're disconnected from, and it's clearly just a pitch. So, wow, I'm rambling all over the place. But anyhow, so where was I on pitching? Okay, yeah, that was it, about vulnerability. So I've definitely had some times where at tables, like, people have really opened up and kind of spilled their guts a little bit about like some really hard experiences that they've gone through, and sometimes it leads to tears. And then, so that's just me doing a book that talks openly about like losing my father to cancer, which is Jacob's apartment, definitely draws from that a lot. Struggling with questioning your faith, which a lot of people will open up about, and again, that's a very like poignant topic for a lot of people that they aren't allowed to talk about a lot of times. And then the other thing is like all the mental illness conversations that I have very openly. Usually, that opens the floodgates for people. It's not the floodgates. It just gives people permission to talk about something that they frankly aren't usually allowed to talk about unless they're like paying somebody like a therapist or something. And so to me, I know I'm talking about like an abundance mindset, but to me, like if I went about my booth or my table, I keep saying booth, but I have like a partial table. But if I went about my approach at a convention with a scarcity mindset, then I'm going to be like really focused on sales and not really present with those people when they're talking. And but if I approach it from an abundance mindset, realizing that like when other people do better, even if I don't do better, it is better. It's just better to like, and that's part of my belief system too, is to treat others as you would like to be treated. If you approach a table or a convention like that, I think you're going to have a much more positive experience. I think you're going to get the things out of a convention that are more important than short-term monetary gain, because your goal is to get readers. If you're making stories, you should have a goal to get readers. And the other goal is just like human connection. And like there is value in being the person that somebody was able to be vulnerable with, and maybe they felt a little relief from being able to like talk about something. There's value to that. And that's a connection that is meaningful, and I think meaningful outside of commerce. And I think that's one of the things I like about the genre that I write, kind of allows for that to happen. And then on the other end, it's something I like about this abundance and scarcity thing, which can sound like a cliche or whatever, but it's like, it's very important. I think that if you approach life with a scarcity mindset where you're thinking that there's really limited resources and we're all fighting for them, that kind of thinking leads to war, to envy, to grief, to strife, to looking at like what my neighbor has and like wanting theirs, to pride, which is definitely one of my weaknesses too, where I will, I take pride in doing art, and I feel proud of like finishing a book. Like it's a hard task. It's like kind of running a race, and you get that like boost of like energy, like wow, I did this. And sometimes I can be prideful about that, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Like I'm not talking about like healthy pride where it's like feeling good about a job well done. I think that's pride at its best, but pride at its worst is like, very like condescending and heavy. It's like a heavy weight that I think people can have. Anyhow, I'm totally diverting on pride, and I do need to like leave fairly shortly. But this is a long commute, and I'm hoping to do more of these videos. I know I'm wearing my ridiculous Hawaiian shirt today too, which I think complements my ridiculous beard pretty well. Although this could be much more ridiculous. I'm working on it. But anyhow, so my point is I am personally really trying to work on having an abundance mindset, approaching conventions and promotion from an abundance mindset, trying to get better at like being more giving and caring, but I'm failing at it all the time. But it's something I attempt, and I think it's a daily attempt, and it's also a constant, like, you know, like prayer thing for me as well, where I really want to be better to people and to be more abundant in my outlook on life, you know, and I think that allows for just a much more meaningful existence where things aren't riding and falling just on the wind and like the circumstances, and like they don't just rise and fall based on like the conditions on the ground. Because I do have times where I'm like very easily blown by the wind, like very easily shaken by circumstances outside of my control. And I think, like, when I think of life from an abundance mindset, like for me, thinking about the things that God has given me, the fact that, like, you know, like if I think about the last few days, I have been so fortunate, like, to be able to go to Toronto for a comic convention, to be able to meet my editor and find out that my editor's awesome, like they're an amazing person, to be able, during that experience while I'm really busy, to find out that Corey got out of the hospital. I was worried about him. You know, a good friend of mine, I mean, you guys have watched the show, you know, was in the hospital, and it's like, it's just brutal. There's a lot of like interpersonal stuff happening with family members being sick and stuff like that, and just being thankful that I'm not right now. I'm not sick. Being thankful that my friends who are sick are still kind of hanging in there and are still around, and that we're still blessed to have them in our lives. Being like, trying to think about how cool it is that you know, the point being, like, I have resources, and not like a braggart kind of way. I'm not rich, I'm not, but then that's what I'm getting at, is like trying to think of a mindset where I am rich, and not rich with like tons of money, but rich with the provisions that my Creator gave me, right? Rich with empathy and interest in other people. That's the mindset I need to be in. I'm not saying I get there all the time, but it's like, I think that I don't know. Anyhow, I'm still kind of working out like how that all interweaves.
In 3.8 miles, keep left onto I-5 south toward Los Angeles.
Okay, will do. But yeah, that's just some thoughts this morning. But the main thing is just trying to think about how that ties in and relates to Autobio is really, I think, pretty fascinating. And I'm going to ruminate on that for quite a bit, just to kind of figure out if there's any legs on that. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on all of this. Was this just a mess of conversing about a million different topics? Or are they connected? Like, I do feel like they're connected, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. So let me know. And then let me know if you're liking these vlogs. Like, I thought it would be cool to kind of take you guys with me to TCAF and show you as much like kind of raw and uncut takes as I could for you guys. So you'll know, like, I think if you watch those TCAF videos, you'll know, like, I'm not trying to depict it like, this is so amazing, you guys, it's amazing. It's like, I think you get a sense of the ups and downs and some of the complexities of the idea of trade shows in general. Like, the idea of commercializing and commodifying art is it's a heavy one, and it's complicated and it's nuanced, and I feel like maybe these things like have something to do with it. But again, I don't have like a full capacity to interweave everything like entirely, because these are just thoughts out of my head, and again, like, maybe they're just like very basic, like standard ideas and stuff. But anyhow, I'm excited. I know I say I'm excited a lot on these videos, but I am excited. I'm excited to get back to work. I'm excited to work with my team, to catch up on like where we're at on everything, and just to kind of get back to not death but love. I'm really excited about that as well. And hopefully to start doing live streams while I'm working on it. I cannot promise that I'm going to be doing that tonight because I am jet lagged as all hell, and so I might need to just crash when I get home. But ideally, I want to do like a live stream and work on that tonight too. So anyhow, thanks to everybody who's been commenting and kind of hanging out and checking out these videos, and let me know if you like these vlogs. You know,
Police reported ahead.
it's something I should probably get back in the habit of doing because they are doable. Like they're you know, I have these long crazy commutes, and it does allow for some time to kind of do these things. And so if it's content you guys like, I can continue it. If you're like, no, just the live streams, that's okay too. I can just go back to kind of the main live streams and stuff. And I think that's going to basically do it, but it's just some thoughts that are on my head and in my brain dome thought bubble space. Man, I'm jet lagged. All right. So if you haven't, hit subscribe, hit the bell, like, comment, all that fun stuff, and I will see you guys on the next vlog. But in the meantime, you know, what for you would an abundance mindset help with, or is this all just woo-woo nonsense?